Why is it so hard to start tasks with ADHD? And why are you only motivated when you're panicking? Hi, I'm Dr. Monica Johnson, a licensed psychologist with more than 17 years of experience working with people with ADHD. And today I'm answering the internet's biggest questions on ADHD and motivation. Why does ADHD affect motivation? Well, it comes down to dopamine. People with ADHD, the dopamine in their brain functions differently. And dopamine is a key neurotransmitter that is connected to reward, motivation, and that feeling that something is worth doing. When dopamine isn't working effectively, what happens is it's really hard for the brain to maintain motivation for things that don't have an immediate or exciting reward. So this may be one of the reasons why it's easy for you to wash the clothes, but it's more difficult to fold and put them away. Why am I only motivated when I'm panicking? So there's actually some interesting research here. When your brain is under pressure, it can activate a stress response pathway that temporarily sharpens your focus. Essentially, you're using stress to compensate for motivation. The problem here is consciously or unconsciously, you can start relying on this, so you'll only start things at the very last minute because you feel like that's the only time that you can get things done. It's a really hard cycle to break, and it's not helpful for your nervous system. So what you want to do is figure out ways to generate motivation without the panic. Why is it so hard to start tasks with ADHD? Task initiation is one of the most difficult executive functions for people with ADHD. Oftentimes you know what you need to do, but there's a gap between that knowledge and actually getting it done. It's a difference in how the brain activates. The trick here is to make the barrier of entry as low as possible. Make the step as small as it needs to be for you to get started. That is truly how momentum gets generated. How do I stop procrastinating with ADHD? So here are a few things that I've noticed at work from my practice. The first is the 2-minute rule. So if it takes you less than 2 minutes to do, just go ahead and get it done. You may also want to consider pairing boring tasks with something that you find stimulating. So this can look like washing the dishes while you play your favorite podcast. You can also create artificial deadlines for yourself to create a sense of urgency. And if you want to take it up a notch, you can even tell a friend about it for extra accountability. And even more so, if you're going to use a friend, you can ask them to body double, because body doubling is really effective for getting work done when you have ADHD. And as a final tip, break it down into the smallest possible steps, because starting is often the hardest part. How do I deal with ADHD paralysis? Well, the first thing you want to do is name your experience. Something as simple as saying to yourself, I'm experiencing ADHD paralysis right now, can give you a bit of distance from it. Then I want you to focus on breaking down the task into the smallest step possible, because often ADHD paralysis comes from feeling like whatever it is too enormous to even begin with. If there's a strong emotional or overwhelm component, grounding can be really helpful. Take a breath, feel your feet on the floor. Really get reconnected with your body. And as always, be compassionate with yourself. Shame makes ADHD paralysis worse, not better. Why does ADHD make it so hard to finish things? When you first start a new project, that gives you a dopamine bump. It's new, it's interesting, it's exciting. But as you keep going, the novelty wears off and the dopamine drops. Suddenly your brain is looking for something more stimulating. And that can be really hard, especially for tasks that are long or really boring. Oftentimes when you're trying to finish a task, especially one that requires more steps, first getting initiated takes a lot of effort, but then there's often situations where you have to switch between tasks, and coming back to something can be really difficult for people with ADHD. Add in working memory issues. So for example, losing track of where you left off and what you need to come back to, and it can be really hard to get back on track. And it makes it really easy to fall into negative self-talk. So things like, why am I like this? Why can't I ever finish anything? You can see how easy it is to get into a spiral, and that spiral can make it even harder to finish the task. And if you're a proud or stressed out member of the Last Minute Panic Club, let us know in the comments down below. I bet you're not alone. Are people with ADHD just lazy? Absolutely not. There are lazy people in the world, but ADHD is not an indication of it. Don't listen to that noise because it's untrue and unhelpful. Whatever they're labeling as laziness is likely better understood under executive dysfunction. Why can people with ADHD hyperfocus on some things but have zero motivation for others? When something is genuinely exciting or meaningful, the ADHD brain engages its reward pathways differently. And sometimes it's so intense, it's called hyperfocus. But for tasks that are routine or boring, the brain activates differently. Your brain can check out, and it's not really a choice. Your brain is chasing stimulation. Your goal isn't to eliminate it, it's to learn how to work around it. This is why it's so important to create habits around things that you have difficulty doing, because you're not always going to have the intrinsic feeling of motivation to complete the task. Why does ADHD make it easy to make plans, but hard to follow through? Planning is fun. It's exciting. It lives in the future where everything is possible. But follow through requires sustained effort on plans that are no longer new. Impulsivity also plays a role. You may overbook yourself in a moment of enthusiasm, and then later, when everything comes into fruition, become overwhelmed. Follow through requires you to go through all of the steps. So this can be things like booking reservations, taking a shower, picking out an outfit so that you can get out of the house on time. All of these things can lead to overwhelm, and that can lead to shut down and make you want to stay home. And saying yes to too many things is very common for people with ADHD, and this is why it's so important to have a calendar and put everything in it. How do I get motivated to do boring tasks? Well, you can try Grandma's rule, or otherwise known as the Premack principle. This is where you pair a low reward task with a high reward task. Essentially, what this looks like is only allowing yourself to watch your favorite show after you do the dishes. Or you can flip it and listen to your favorite podcast only when you're engaging in the boring task. What you're doing is borrowing motivation from something that your brain is already naturally wanting to give something that is a low motivation a boost. Does ADHD medication help with motivation? Yes, it does, because it makes the availability of norepinephrine and dopamine more available, and these neurotransmitters are connected to motivation. When more of those are available, the mental effort required to getting a task going and done is lower. So you want to think about it like pushing a boulder up a hill. Medication won't remove the hill, but it makes the boulder a lot lighter. What actually motivates an ADHD brain? Honestly, the same thing that motivates any brain: urgency, passion, interest, excitement, meaning. The difference is the ADHD brain needs more of them and has a harder time generating motivation without them. So the goal is learning how to engineer those conditions for yourself. Did you like this video? Because we have a lot more resources like these on our channel. So go ahead and subscribe to get the latest research and tips from experts like me on learning and thinking differences, including ADHD and dyslexia. Thanks for watching.